Hey everyone, we are on to gender today, which is a topic that I am quite passionate about. I was definitely raised a stereotypical male and grew up to be a pretty emotionally inept young adult as a result. My ability to experience empathy, to relate and recognize others' emotions, to communicate in a healthy manner that was aware of the emotional impact of my words, or even to recognize my own emotions or to allow myself to fully and freely express them, was really stifled just because of all the subtle messages I'd been told about what it means to be a man from, as young an age as I can remember. And so I'm really passionate about this topic. I'm really passionate about us helping everybody become an individual rather than feeling like they have to conform to some sort of narrow, limiting box. There's a lot of layers to this conversation that makes things kind of tricky. One is that our treatment of students often involves implicit bias, which is very subtle and something that we don't even recognize that we have. And so when we don't recognize that we have a bias, it's obviously very hard to overcome it. I've posted a little psychology crash course on implicit bias and how that works. And the video also talks about the creation of out-groups, because I think that's another thing as teachers we have to be really careful about. When we divide our class up by gender, boys and girls or whatever, again, there's the obvious problem that this presupposes that these two arbitrary categories that we've created actually fit all humans, and of course they don't. So, but even beyond that, it's creating in-groups and out-groups, and we tend to relate to in-groups and out-groups in very different ways. So if you lump the boys together, that's going to tend to get them to think about their own identity and the identity of girls in a very particular, not so positive way. So there's some really easy things that we can do, but again, just being more aware of our implicit biases. So teachers, for example, will typically call in boys more than girls without realizing that they're doing it. In classrooms where boys and girls are called on equally, boys tend to think that the girls are being favored just because they're so used to the normal being that boys are called on more frequently. Boys tend to be called out by their individual name, whereas girls tend to be lumped together. Johnny, blah, 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 versus girls, be quiet. There's so many little things like this. So, and one of them that I've been kind of working on is just avoiding gendered language in the classroom entirely. A lot of times our language is gendered and we don't realize it. Like people will say, you guys, but they just mean you individuals. I try really hard not to do that, and that's a subtle one, but I think when we can rise above even kind of the subtle little things, then we're really killing it as teachers. There's a lot of ways that we're teaching our students what it means to be a healthy member of their gender, from the behaviors that we model in terms of whatever gender box they put us into, what we normalize in our classroom, what stereotypes might be present in any of the materials that we are sharing with them in any of our lessons, what behaviors we allow in the class versus sort of call out immediately. So we have so much power when it comes to this topic. And again, it's one that I'm so passionate about because I see it as something that can really limit the growth of our students if they internalize some of these labels too seriously. I know there's a lot of things that I would have pursued growing up if I didn't think that they were, quote unquote, unmanly or girly or just outside the realm of what was expected. And so I feel like I got robbed in a lot of ways, and I try really hard not to rob anybody else. And when it comes to our students, I really feel like what we should do as teachers is promote their future possible selves in any possible way. Or we want to keep that spectrum of possibilities as broad as possible. We don't want to be limiting or narrowing the scope of what our students might become or what they might do. So a lot to think about on this topic with gender. I've attached a couple great articles about both how we do this as teachers and what steps we can take to avoid doing it. I also posted the blog that I wrote about painting my nails and what that experience has been like for me, stepping outside of gender norms. It's been a fascinating one, so if you haven't read that yet, feel free to check it out. And then optional viewing, there's a great documentary called The Mask You Live In. I won't say you have to watch it because I'm not sure you can find it for free. You might have to rent it on Netflix or Amazon or whatever, and I know we're poor, and so I'm not going to require that you watch it. Spend your money the way you best need to, but it is absolutely phenomenal, and I think it really shows a lot of the damage that we do when we gender stereotype. And so if you get a chance to check that out, please do. But you might just be thinking, as an individual, where have people in your life told you that you couldn't do something because of who you are? Where did somebody else put you in a box and limit your growth or limit your possibilities? And what can we do as teachers to make sure that we never do that to our students? So check out the resources. I really love talking about this stuff, so I hope you have tons of questions and tons of comments, and we can take it from there.